Imagine entering a scene not with just your eyes, but through perspective, where every tilt and shift of the lens tells secrets about the story unfolding before you. The approach directors and DPs take with camera angles can carry the power to elevate a character into greatness or cast them into vulnerability. In the hands of a filmmaker, the camera becomes an extension of the human experience, its angles offering a unique window into the souls of the characters and the heart of the narrative. Each angle is a brushstroke in the director's visual language, crafting not just a shot, but an emotional landscape. So let's talk about the psychology behind camera angles and how they're used in films today. Before we get into some of the angles and techniques used in modern cinema, let's quickly set the foundation with some historical context. Let's go way back to the silent era of film, which was from the 1890s to about the 1920s. In the silent film era, the absence of spoken dialogue meant that the visual storytelling carried the entire narrative. Camera angles were pivotal in expressing emotions and enhancing the story. Directors had to rely on visual cues to convey the inner world of characters and the dynamics of the plot. Directors like Fritz Lang also played a significant role in the evolution of film language during the silent era. Lang's Metropolis, with its grandiose sets and dramatic camera work, used high-angle shots to showcase the monumental scale of the city and low-angle shots to give power to the dominating structures, reflecting the social hierarchies and the tension of its narrative.
Ballyhoo. It's a pretty nice ballyhoo. But here's some of our real Mercury people. This is the first time you've seen most of them on the screen. Hey, give Joe a little light. Thanks. Now smile for the folks, Joe.
As cinema matured, so did the art of the angle. Directors of Hollywood's golden age harnessed high and low angles to create dramatic visual language that spoke volumes. From the 1960s to about the 1970s came the rise of auteur filmmakers. With the rise of these filmmakers, angles became a signature way for directors to imprint their personal style and thematic obsessions into their film. Today's directors continue to push the boundaries of how angles could be used to immerse an audience or convey complex emotional landscapes. Film is a visual medium, and directors are using angles not just to frame their shot, but to insert some psychological depth into a story. The way a character is viewed on screen can often shape our perception, and often it's done subconsciously, influencing our emotions and understanding of the narrative. Take Zack Snyder's Justice League, for example. When Batman surveys Gotham from high above, the camera looks up at him. This low-angle shot positions him as a towering figure, and not just physically, but morally and ideationally. He's the watchful protector, an almost mythic force standing against chaos. In stark contrast, Matilda, which when I was a kid was probably my favorite movie, utilizes low-angle shots from Matilda's perspective. When she looks up at the towering figure of her principal, the audience feels her intimidation. The principal looms over the frame, oppressive and foreboding, embodying the challenges Matilda must overcome. This angle makes us align with Matilda's vulnerability and her courageous spirit to confront it. Now, this is not like a rule. If you watch a movie today or whenever and you see a high or low angle, the director may not be communicating that to you, but I want you to pay attention next time you do watch a film and see what they're trying to say with these angles. We covered the high and low angles. Let's talk about another angle. It's called the Dutch angle, and you've probably seen it a dozen times. The term Dutch angle is derived from Deutsch, the German word for German, not Dutch, which refers to things from the Netherlands. It's also known as the German angle because of its origin in German expressionist cinema of the early 20th century. The style was notably used by German filmmakers who were experimenting with the visual language of film to evoke emotional reactions and represent psychological states. This angle is achieved by tilting the camera to one side, creating a frame that's not level. The resulting shot can make the scene appear skewed or off balance, and is often used to convey disorientation, tension, or a sense of unease. The technique was brought to Hollywood in the 1920s by filmmakers like F.W. Monroe, who directed Nosferatu and later Sunrise. As these and other German directors began working in the American film industry, they brought with them distinctive techniques from the German Expressionist movement, including the use of the Dutch angle. What about over-the-shoulder shots? A very common angle that you see in almost every TV show and film. Could directors be using over-the-shoulder shots to subconsciously communicate something to us, the audience? Let's take a look at that.
It wasn't.
What was Sean Parker's ownership share diluted down to?
It wasn't.
What was Peter Thiel's ownership share diluted down to?
It wasn't.
And what was your ownership share diluted down to?
0.03%.
In David Fincher's The Social Network, an over-the-shoulder shot is used during the deposition scenes, specifically when Eduardo confronts Mark about his diluted shares. This OTS frames Eduardo from behind Mark, focusing on Eduardo's expression of betrayal and anger. The choice of this angle places you and I, the audience, in Mark's position, and not just as a passive observer, but as an active participant in this confrontation. This creates a more intimate and intense viewing experience, highlighting the personal rift between the characters and allowing the audience to feel the impact of Eduardo's words as if they were directed at them. Let's go back to The Dark Knight. The OTS shot is used effectively to portray power dynamics, particularly in the scene where Batman interrogates the Joker. The camera angle initially looks over the Joker's shoulder at Batman and depicts the Joker as unpredictable and controlling the conversation despite being the one restrained. As the balance of power shifts, the camera moves to look over Batman's shoulder, showcasing the increasing intensity and physicality of Batman as he seeks to gain dominance in this conversation. This subtle change of camera positions reflects the changing dynamics of power and control in the scene. Jonathan Demme's Silence of the Lambs employs the OTS shot to create empathy and tension between Clarice Starling and Hannibal Lecter. When Clarice first visits Hannibal, the OTS shots are tight, with the back of Lecter's head occupying a significant portion of the frame as we see Clarice's face. This shot choice forces the audience to lean into Clarice's discomfort and vulnerability. The closeness of the frame to Clarice's perspective invites us to share her emotional experience while still feeling the looming presence of Lecter, even though he's behind the glass and cannot physically reach her. What about the eye level shot? Sorry, I was a bit out of focus, but let's talk about the eye level shot. The eye level shot is one of the most common camera angles in film, mirroring the everyday perspective of human sight. It establishes a neutral angle that neither glorifies or diminishes its subject, creating a sense of equality between the character and the audience.
Just tell us a story. About. You can just tell us anything.
Anything.
Yeah, just tell us the story. You're a storyteller.
It can be powerfully used to invite the audience into the character's experience, allowing for an emotional connection. Here are a few examples of some well-utilized eye-level shots. In Robert Zemeckis', I don't want to butcher his last name, but in Robert Zemeckis' Forrest Gump, eye-level shots are frequently used to connect the audience directly with Forrest Gump. Throughout the film, especially during the iconic bench scenes, the camera is positioned eye level as Forrest recounts his life story to various passersby. This angle encourages viewers to meet Forrest as an equal, to sit down with him and engage with his narrative intimately. The relatability of this angle helps evoke empathy and warmth for the character, making his extraordinary tales feel personable and accessible. In Francis Coppola's The Godfather, eye-level shots are strategically used during the iconic scene where Michael Corleone takes the pivotal step towards becoming the new Godfather. When Michael is at the hospital protecting his father, the camera meets him directly at eye level. This directness fosters an intimate understanding of Michael's resolve and the weight of the moment. It positions the viewers to be in a room to feel the tension and to grasp the gravity of Michael's decision without the influence of cinematic manipulation. The emotion evoked here is one of solemn understanding and the impending sense of a significant transformation. Another amazing film that uses eye-level shots in unique ways is Jordan Peele's Get Out. They use it to create suspense and realism. Particularly notable is when the protagonist Chris is hypnotized by Missy. The camera maintains an eye-level perspective, intensifying the realism of the scene, allowing the audience to engage with Chris's helplessness and anxiety directly. The shot feels uncomfortable and personal, as if the audience is undergoing the same spine-chilling experience. The emotions evoked here are those of fear and vulnerability, as viewers are drawn into the horror of Chris's situation without the detachment that might come from a more stylized camera angle. And there we have it. Our dive into camera angles ends right where it started, with a simple truth. Every camera angle tells a story. And we just covered some angles, there are many more. But remember, it's not just about what you see, but how you see it. Think about that low angle shot that made the underdog seem like a giant, or the bird's eye view that turned a bustling city into a dance of ants. These aren't just random choices, they're deliberate strokes of storytelling genius. When you're watching your next movie, I challenge you to do something. Notice the camera work. See if you can catch the director's sleight of hand turning a lens into language, because in the end, filmmaking is just about showing us the world through a new set of eyes, and sometimes literally. So as we wrap up today's video, I want you to remember this. The power of cinema isn't just in the story that it tells, but in the perspective that it chooses to tell that story from. So when you watch your next film, your next TV show, keep an eye out on those angles, because they might just give you a whole new angle on life itself. My name is Moses Vega. I hope that you liked this video, and remember, always stay a student of the game.